I started out as a camper, like a lot of you guys. And, there'd be some days when we'd be playing so hard. We'd be, in the field, and we'd be having great games. We've been playing. We didn't have Gaga, so we played foursquare and tetherball and soccer. And there'd be some days that you'd just be so dry. For a drink. It was just killing you, right? Have you ever been that dry?
Yeah.
I've been that dry. And later, the first year I was a counselor, one of the other counselors sang a song at chapel about being that dry. And I said, I've been that dry. So I learned how to play that song. It's the only song I know how to play. Thank goodness, it's a pretty good song. So I played it every Saturday for chapel for about 25 years. That's a lot of chapels. But there's a couple things you need to know ahead of time. Have any of you ever seen one of those old-fashioned pumps where you have to pump the handle like this? You seen one of those? Have you make it work? It's so much fun. No, did you know why they work? Well, it turns out in the old days, they didn't have fancy electric motors that pumped the water up from the deep down in the ground. I mean, the pumps here at camp, you can go down a couple hundred feet to get the water, where it's fresh and pure, where it's gone all the way down through all this tasty sand to give it that distinct aroma that we have here at Camp Tecumseh. No. In the old days, the settlers would have to find a place, and they'd have to either dig by hand or drill by hand with a hand auger as deep as they could go. And then what they would do is they would stick a long iron rod down there that had a contraption on the end called a sucker washer that came up to the pump. So every time you pushed down on the handle, you were pulling up on that rod. And it would suck up some water and hold it there. It wouldn't let it fall back. And you pump it again, it would push it up to pipe a little closer. Well, the number of times you pushed it, that's how far you were away from the water. Pretty cool, huh? Well, nowadays, they got these fancy materials like neoprene gaskets to make their motors and pumps run really smooth all the time. But in the old days, the first gaskets down there were made out of leather. And that's how they could suck the water up. Now, have any of you ever had one of those dart guns with a rubber suction cup on your head? And, if you wanted to stick on your little brother's forehead, what would you do?
Lick it.
I can't believe you knew how to do that. Your poor little brother. Yeah, you lick it because it makes that old beat-up suction cup work really well. Now, if I got an old well and my sucker washer is a couple hundred feet down, I'm not going to be able to lick it. And I don't have that much spit in me either. So what people would have to do is they'd have to save some water. Not very much. Usually just a vinegar jar was enough from the last time they pumped. Because when the leather got dried out, they had to pour this, and it would just dribble down that iron rod all the way down and get the sucker washer wet. And then it would work, and as you pumped, it would work great. There's just one thing they had to remember, though. They had to fill the jar back up again, because otherwise, when Mom came to pump water for dinner and she couldn't get any, they'd be in a heap of trouble. That's what's called priming the pump. Now, many of us have heard that story. Your teachers might say, we're going to have to prime the pump on this to get this activity going. It comes from that idea of having to put some water in first to get the pump all going. Now, why in the world on a beautiful Saturday morning are we talking about sucker washers and priming the pump? We're going to go back to that really thirsty person that we once were, and sometimes might be this afternoon. Imagine that you're crossing the desert and you find a pump. I have to be ready for my close-up. I was traveling west of Buckskin on my way to a cattle run, across the cactus desert under a hard-baking sun. Thirsty down to my toenails, I stopped to rest on a stump, and I tell you, I couldn't believe it when I looked and saw that pump. I took it to be a mirage at first, it'll fool the thirsty man, but then I saw a note stuck on a baking powder can. Pump is old, the note began, but she works, so give her a try. I put a new sucker washer in her, I'm going to find that leather dry. You gotta prime the pump, you must have faith and believe. You gotta give of yourself before you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold, wash your face and cool your feet. but leave that bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, desert people. Now you're gonna have to prime that pump with the hand like there's a fire. Under a rock, you'll find some water left there in a vinegar jar. Now, there's just enough to prime it with, so don't go drinking none, doggone it. Just pour it in and pump like mad. I'm sure you'll quench your thirst. You gotta prime the pump. You must have faith and believe. You gotta give of yourself before you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold. Wash your face and cool your feet. But leave that bottle full for others. Think you kindly, Desert Pete. Well, I found the jar, and I'll tell you, there's nothing prettier to my eye. I was tempted strong to drink it because that pump looked mighty dry. But the note went on, have faith, my friend, there's water down below. You gotta give to really get, and I'm the one to know. You gotta prime the pump. You must have faith and believe. You gotta give of yourself before you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold. Wash your face and cool your feet. But leave that bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, Desert Pete. Well, I poured in a jar and started pumping and heard that beautiful sound of water bubbling and splashing above that hole in the ground. I took off my shoes to drop my feet to feel that cool, refreshing breeze. Thank the Lord and thank the pump, and I thank the old Desert Pete. You gotta prime the pump. You must have faith and believe. You got to give of yourself before you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold. Wash your face and cool your feet. But leave that bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, Desert Pete. Now, you know, that's a good way to end up, because what I would do is I say, kids, we're going home today. That's good news and bad news. It's good news because we get to see all our friends. Yay! It's bad news because it's the last day of camp for a lot of you. Boo! And you know, we've had some great times here. And I say, what did we do on Monday? Monday was skit night. And what were we doing Tuesday? And Thursday was carnival. And yeah! All these, we're just pumped up because their parents are coming, and I really wanted them to tell their parents all the cool stuff. You know, when you came to camp, some of you, like me, had that dry feeling inside, but it wasn't from not drinking. It was from being a little scared. Like maybe being here for the first time and not knowing anybody. And it's kind of like right inside here. Pretty soon, though, there were other people around that were just eager to just make me part of the family, make me part of the cabin. My counselors were so cool. The leaders of my clinics were so cool. And especially the kids I got to know as friends right here at camp were so cool. What all those people were doing is they were filling up your vinegar jar full of love and happiness inside of you. So that right now, if you shake a little bit, shake inside, can you feel it? Isn't that great to just feel it shaking inside? Now, when you go home, you got all these great memories of Camp Tecumseh. Just look at them in there, splashing, bubbling, ready to get out. What you might be tempted to do, though, is not tell anybody. And just very carefully, when you're feeling down, take a few sips of yourself. And take another sip when you're on your friends, you know, when you're texting your friends and stuff. But what about all your friends that didn't get to go to camp? Well, your mom and dad and brothers and sisters, they were back in the city the whole time. They didn't have the great times we had here at camp. Their vinegar jar is pretty dry. Yours is pretty full. What if, when you got home, the first thing you did was tell them all about camp and the great time you had, and sing some camp stories while you're on the way home in the car? Before you know it, your mom, your dad, your brother and sister, your friends, everybody you know is got their jar. And now guess what? Does your jar empty out when you fill it with other people? No. What happens when you give to other people like that? You get a whole lot more back.